on computers and phones and that kind of stuff, and it like derails me. So if you have pen and paper, I would strongly prefer that that's how you took notes. If you don't have anything else, then so be it. I'll just have to deal with my own neuroses a little bit. First of all, thank you all for coming back or for coming here for the first time. We super duper appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. Oh, thanks. I have a white one and a green one, and I rotated at Dreamforce every day.
That's a great color.
What was I going to say? Oh, this is the first alumni session, obviously, that we have ever done. We kind of had the idea, I think, last year when we were here, it would be fun to just bring people back and do sort of totally different, new kind of content and, see some old familiar faces, and then have people who have been to some meet people who have also been to some but never kind of together and all that kind of thing. So yeah, we appreciate it, and as always, if you have a good time, help us spread the word. We don't do a hell of a lot of promoting and things like that. Kind of rely on word of mouth and networks and all that kind of thing. So anyways, hopefully everybody has a good time and learns a little bit. First thing I'm going to ask you to do is stand up real quick, because we're probably like a little bit tired, right? Stretch a little bit, shake it out however you want, all right? Touch your toes maybe for a second. Get the blood flowing a little bit. We're going to talk about the future of sales, which is just one man's opinion, but I will say that the longer you're in this game and the more you're around early stage startups and VCs and whatnot, you start to kind of get an eye for what's around turn 3, not just turn 1. If you think of a racetrack, right? Most people are focused on what's this turn right in front of me, and I'm always trying to focus on what's like 2 turns ahead to see what's coming, okay? So that's what all this is about. I don't necessarily expect everybody to agree with me. I don't need you to agree with me. The purpose of this exercise for me, as far as I'm concerned, is to open your mind a little bit, pull your head out of the sand maybe a little bit, and mostly just to get you thinking, to work on awareness. So real quick, write down 3 words or phrases of what you think the future of sales is. And then when we're all done, or at some point during this week, I want you to come up to me and tell me if any of the 3 things that you wrote down were covered by what I'm talking about. So I'll give you like a minute or 2 here. I have a notebook.
Do you? I would love one, please.
Oh, yeah, I do too. If you have
Thank you, Scott. I took a gamble. Maybe we don't have, maybe we don't.
I like everything to be digitalized.
Rip some pages out for somebody who doesn't have.
Maybe get up, Queen.
Oh, I thought you were.
A tiny bit easier for me.
You want a remarkable?
Here, you take that.
Alex,
I can write on my lap.
Do you want to use this?
No, I don't know how to use that. That's too tech for me.
Remarkable.
Yes, thank you.
Also, it's a couple pages.
Thank
John,
you.
want a couple pages?
Best.
Good, actually, sure.
That wasn't yelling. You know when I yell.
I'm gonna tell Jeff. I'm gonna tell Jeff.
Okay, I'll give you all just another minute, especially for those people who just got paper. Don't overthink it too much. Future of sales is 3 words or 3 little phrases or ideas, concepts, whatever you. All right. So, going to start off with just a little like update on kind of where we're at and maybe some reasons that are behind where we're at. So I don't know if you're aware, but 70% of sales teams are expected to miss quota in 2023. 70% of teams. And it's actually about 80% of sellers, if you can believe it or that. All right? That is a big number, which I'll get into a little deeper in a little bit. Everybody's here everybody here has heard about like, oh, the market conditions, the economy, all that kind of stuff, right? I'm not here to discredit that in any way, shape, or form. My personal opinion is that's used as an excuse quite a bit, and I think it's a decently legitimate excuse, to be honest with you. So I don't think that we should discredit that. The other reason is there's a lot of shitty companies that are out there. And I don't just mean like badly run. What I mean is money was so easy to acquire in terms of fundraising that Sam and Kylie and Colin would be out there and they'd build a whole company based off this one little like use case, this one little widget thing, right? And they raise a bunch of money, and then you go out there and try to sell, and there's just like no appetite for it. It can't scale beyond a particular point. You've started to see a bunch of the riffs and things like that from companies who raised in 2019 and 2020. What I think is you're going to see in 2024 is all those companies are going to fume out. So there's a lot of what the VCs are calling zombie companies walking around right now. They're not really growing. They're existing still, but they're just kind of like, they can't get any traction. They're not scaling. They're laying people off. Nobody's going to buy them, and they're not going to be able to raise again. So a lot of those companies are going to go extinct and die off, which unfortunately is going to mean a lot of people are unemployed and getting laid off. The other thing that I think is responsible is the talent pool has been massively drained. What I mean by that is, back in like 2019, I'll just use that because that's when I kind of cut the cord. There's probably 200 people that I can think of that used to be sellers or sales leaders that now run their own business and work for themselves. So I talk to founders and VCs all the time who are like, we're having a really hard time finding a head of sales. I'm like, well, I'm not surprised because fucking 200 of them just exited the market. Same thing with salespeople. Alexine, top seller, works for herself, right? And I can think of like dozens upon dozens and dozens of other examples, and you all probably can as well. Half the people that you probably see on your LinkedIn feed are ex-enterprise sellers or ex-sales leaders or what have you. That has a huge drain in the talent pool. So especially from a leadership perspective, if you pull 200 leaders out of the companies and you replace them with 200 inferior leaders, what's going to happen? Not going to perform as well. I also think that all the silos that we've created, meaning well, this person does like research, and this person does prospecting, and this person does closing, and this person actually knows the product and is an SE, and all this kind of stuff. And then all the tools that we built to allegedly help us perform better, all of those things have absolutely killed skill sets. You have AEs who make, I don't know, 150, 200K right now, who can't fucking prospect or pitch to save their life. Think about some of the people at Orem, for example, that actually perform okay. And if we sit and listen to the calls, which I did with you, it was like nails on chalkboard, right?
Some of the SDRs, absolutely.
Yeah. And even some of the AEs, I would argue, at least if I listen to those calls, they'd be like, oh, I can't handle it. Because this is what I do all the time. I'm like, how is this person one of your best people? I literally would not buy a beer off them. So I think the skill sets have declined. But most importantly, and this is where I'm going to spend most of the time, there's a generational behavioral change that has occurred with all of us. And I speak as a 46-year-old man. If you go to people who are 36, it's more extreme. Go to people who are 26, it's more extreme. You go to people who are 16, like my son is about to be, everything is different in the way they experience the world. So those are some of the reasons that I think this top heading here has occurred. 70% will not hit quota. And it's largely because these traditional channels just simply don't work the way that they used to. Typically, and if you've been a VP of sales like Dan and Sam and Colin and everybody, you're sort of told to build a comp plan where like 75 to 80% of your team is gonna hit the target. Like that's how you base your forecast. So that leaves about 20% of people missing. So you're talking about 3+X the number of people missing right now than normal. There's 10 years of data that show declining pickup rates. Those pickup rates are now like 7 to 8%. I'm not that good at math, but that's like 12 or 13 calls you have to make for one person to pick up the phone. In 2004, when I started selling, it was almost 50%. I knew that I could make 100 calls, 50 people would pick up, I'd probably get 25 of them that would actually talk to me and give me the time of day, right? Then I knew about a dozen of those would become legitimate kind of prospects, and I could build my whole funnel based on that math. This is horrible math, 7 to 8%. There's 10 years of data showing declining open and especially reply rates, positive reply rates on email, where if you're getting a 1 to 2% positive reply rate right now, you're doing good. Think about that for a second. Especially in the context of, you can't just like copy paste and send bullshit. You're supposed to be personalized, relevant, and all this stuff. I don't know about you, but people like Richard take 3 hours to write an email. So if he wants to get, that's fact, by the way. That's why I'm thinking on it. He literally spent parts of 2 days and 3 hours writing one email. So if Richard is going to write 100 emails, that all probably take him 15 minutes a piece, let's say, for him. How long does that take to get 1 or 2 of them to reply back? So what's happening is we're wasting more time than ever. Some people might argue with me that you're not wasting time, that you actually are doing what you're supposed to be doing and being very strategic and very targeted. You hear all these words flying around. I don't really buy that at all. I'm not built that way. I come from a world and a line of thinking where it's like, if I'm sitting here and strategizing and just thinking over and over and over, barely being able to get emails out and calls out and all this kind of thing, I've wasted my day. I've wasted my day. That's how I think. There's other things that I could have been doing that would move the needle faster. Back to all the tools. Think about how many different things you have to do with all these tools in order to move a account that you're working from one stage to the next. You have to put all these notes in, do all this kind of stuff. And if you don't, you're in big trouble. Your ops person like Amy is going to be pissed off at you. Your VP of sales like me is going to be pissed off because I can't rely on the data, right? And you're under more stress than ever. We're under more stress because we know like the economy is terrible right now, people are losing their job, but we've also been through like 4 years of collective trauma, if you really want to break it down, right? The economy sucks, there's wars going on everywhere, there was like race riots years ago that we've probably forgotten about almost now, then there's a pandemic and all this kind of thing, right? We've all been through the fucking ringer for the last few years. Not to mention whatever anybody's gone through personally, right? Richard's had some health issues, I went through a divorce, like there's all sorts of shit that has gone on for all of us, right? And leaders, for the most part, don't really know what to do. There's a few different camps that you see and hear. There's the people who are like, just fucking do more. Volume, 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 volume. I don't think that's the right answer. Then there's the other camp that's like, move very, very slow, be very, very strategic. How's that gonna work? Unless you're closing big, huge, monstrous deals that, nail your whole quota with one deal for the whole year, that's not gonna work either. So people are lost in terms of trying to figure out what to do, and they're looking for answers all over the place. And this is not to say that my answer is the correct one, but this is what I believe is going to work and what's coming down the pipe. So here's my bold statement, number 1. The future of sales is actually network-led growth. It's not as controversial as you might think, because enterprise deals have gotten done via your network forever. It's the only way to get them done, arguably. You know the right people, you weasel your way in, you have 9,000 conversations at the top level until people trust you, and then blah, 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 deals closed. It's the only way they've gotten done, is through your network. You're not cold calling Bob Iger at Disney, and he's picking up the phone and you're closing the deal. That's not happening. You're maneuvering your way in. So what is happening is that strategy and structure is moving from the Fortune 500 big enterprise down to low enterprise, down to high mid-market, down to low mid-market, almost down to like SMB even, like 25,000 deals and lower annual revenue deals. So let's talk about this generational change a little bit. Raise your hand if you have your ringer on during the day, during your work day. If your ringer is on and the phone rings. 2 people. How old are you, if you don't mind? How old are you?
38.
Okay. How old are you?
33.
How old are you?
31.
Okay. One could argue that that's a decent example of the older you are, you're still operating in this old world where a phone call ringing was a big deal, and the younger you are, it's not anymore. My ringer is off 24/7. I'll tell you a little story for a second. When I was a kid, and maybe when Dan was a kid, maybe Amy, Richard for sure, when the phone rang in your house,
You're just roasting Richard.
It's okay, I do it to him all the time. So it's okay.
you've been here before.
I'd like to cook this
I know, it was like 5 in a row.
This is what we do. This is what we do. When the phone rang in my house, it was like a full-on sprint to beat your sibling to the phone, or if you thought your significant other or boyfriend or girlfriend or crush was calling, to beat your fucking parents to the phone because you didn't want your boyfriend to have to talk to your mom or your dad who would grill them, right? It was a fucking event. And I can remember my parents not leaving the house until a phone call came. Like, we can't go anywhere, I'm expecting a phone call from so-and-so. It was a big deal. That is not how we interact with or experience the world anymore, at all. Now, we have caller ID everywhere on your phone. And also, we've gotten smart enough with the technology, and it says spam sometimes when somebody calls you, right? Or it says toll free, or it says telemarketer, or possible telemarketer, or something like that. You pick up the phone, if it's a number that you don't recognize, raise your hand. If you answer the phone when it's a number you don't recognize. Why?
Because I work in sales. Okay.
Because you're thinking somebody's gonna call you back that you might close a deal with?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah. Does anybody have a
that's the
different
whole-
reason than that?
That's the whole.
That they answer numbers from somebody else?
Like, it could be a business, like a doctor thing, school thing, something in your community.
Yeah. So the only reason we're actually answering the phone is out of expectation and anticipation, maybe, or fear of calamity. Something has happened, especially to our kids, right? Otherwise, we really don't have a desire to pick up the phone and talk on the phone. You've also got the ghosting, or what the kids say, left on red phenomenon. Which, if you talk to my parents, who are in their upper 70s now, my mom says common courtesy is dead. Because in her generation, if somebody reached out to you, sent you something like a letter in the mail, or even emailed, or called and left a message, you sure as hell better get back to that person. Otherwise, you're like a bad human, and Catholic guilt takes over, and like, you're going to hell.
Nailed it.
Right? That's the generation my parents come from. So when my parents come visit, or I go home for holidays or whatever, I'll see them on their computer, and I'm like, Dad, what the fuck are you doing? He's responding to every single email in his inbox, 99% of which are spam. And I'm like, Dad, this is a bullshit, like, this is not a real person, right? He's like, well, they took the time to write me this, so I need to write it back and tell them I'm not interested. I'm just like, oh my fucking God, what is happening? We don't operate that way anymore. What's worse though, if we go down generations, is young people, specifically my high schoolers, they don't feel the need to respond to me at all. My kids won't text me back unless I specifically say, please text me back with your answer. Or text me back or your fucking phone is mine for the next week. They don't. And it's not in their mind because they're being rude. It's because that's how they're like socialized now. So if I just say something like, you know, perfect example, the other day I texted my son, I was like, hey, I caught a bunch of waves today. That was all I said. Caught a bunch of waves today. No reply, right? I'll send them a text message during the day that's like, you know, practice is at 7 o'clock tonight. Don't forget practice at 7 o'clock tonight or something like that. There's no like, thumbs up. There's no like, got it, dad, whatever. There's no response. So I'm always like, dude, I'm paying for your fucking phone. Like, you better reply to me. But in their mind, they're like, well, you didn't ask me specifically to say something back. There was no ask. So I read it and was just like, yeah, I know I have practice. I don't need to reply back to you. So they're socialized in such a way where they don't need to reply back. They're going to reply less frequently than we all are, period, as we move forward. Those people in 5, 10, 15 years, they're gonna be in our chairs. They'll be founders and executives. They'll be the people that we're trying to get a hold of and sell stuff to, or being led by. So notifications of any type really have gone from producing like excitement, enthusiasm, and being some sort of event to basically just being a freaking distraction in the middle of the day. Anybody put their phone in the other room while they're working when they need to focus? Or flip it over so you don't see like notifications
I have a work
going
phone,
off?
so I don't
You
even
have a
look at
what?
my. I have a work phone. I don't even look at my personal
Jesus
phone.
Christ, you're in 1985 still. Unbelievable.
It's good separation.
But that's our fear of notifications. You see all these productivity hacks from all these, tech bros and stuff. It's like, turn your notifications off all day. Unsubscribe from all these things so you can do deep focus work and all that stuff. Right? It's a distraction now. You don't believe me if you know or have kids who are teenagers or have nieces, nephews, whatever, even college kids. Ask them how often they call and talk on the phone to their friends. I asked my kids just as an experiment. They said, never. Why would I call my friend? I said, well, do you text them? If you want to get a hold of them, they're like, no, texting's for old people. I'm like, do you use email ever? Like, no. I'm like, well, what if your teachers are trying to get a hold of you or coaches or whatever? That's what apps are for, Dad. That's the response. They don't use it. I have at least had a half dozen clients this year that do not want to communicate with me over the phone or over email. All of them are like 25, 26. A couple of them are like text me only. Others are just like, we communicate only in Slack. That's the world that we're headed to. So, help me understand how you can have a belief that cold calling people and cold emailing people is going to miraculously get better than it is today and go back to the world where it used to be, when the people coming up under us literally don't use this communication channel at all. I think about tools like Lavender. I'll pick on Lavender. I was an early investor in Lavender in like 2018, 2019. I'm like, what is this generative AI shit? Oh my God, it's writing emails for you. Now I think to myself, who cares about somebody being able to write an email for me when the people I'm sending an email to literally don't check their email? Why do I care about developing your cold calling skills if all the people that you're trying to call don't use the telephone to communicate? What's the point of it? I don't understand how that will change as we move forward. I only think that it's going to get worse, significantly worse, at a rate that is rapidly increasing. One last point on generational changes. As far back as 10, 15 years ago or so, if we were going to go to a brand new city and didn't know where to stay, where to eat, what to go do, how did you find this information and figure out and make your decisions?
Yelp.
You went to Yelp, you went to review sites, or
Magazine.
way back in the day, I used to have this like Let's Go Europe book. You remember those? That was how I got around after I graduated college and went to Europe. Let's Go Europe, and there's like little pictures of maps, and I'm like, fuck, is this accurate still? Remember that? You use review sites, okay? Who believes reviews that they see on Yelp still? Anybody here? We all know it's like a pay-to-play game. It's 100% pay-to-play. You can call up Yelp as a small business owner and be like, I need a lot better reviews. I need to be positioned up higher. And they're like, that costs $5,000. I know because I sold all that shit. That's the world that I came from 10, 15 years ago. What about G2 Crowd or Trust Radius or any of these business ones? If you're going to think about buying a piece of software, if you want to think about buying Orem, which is where Colin works, are you going to G2 Crowd to read reviews? Do you trust the reviews that are on there? Or do you think maybe Orem emailed the whole company and was like, hey, we really need some more reviews? Or they emailed all their customers and they're like, hey, we'll give you 10% off if you write something nice about us. What about Glassdoor? Raise your hand if you've worked at a company where a message came down from above that said, please write something nice on Glassdoor about us. So do you go to Glassdoor if you're thinking about going to work someplace and like fully trust it?
Well, I would trust the negative reviews. I wouldn't trust the positives.
I take it as a data point.
Yeah, dude.
The point is, it's not a single source of truth anymore, whereas maybe it used to be. Now what most people do is you talk to somebody in the know. If you're considering going to work someplace, you're like, oh, Scott knows that place or that company. Let me ask him, right? If you're thinking about buying a piece of software, what people do now is they post something in a community and they're like, hey, I'm trying to decide between Outreach, Sales Loft, da 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 da. Tell me about your experiences. And everybody just jumps in and talks about like what they've been through. And that's how decisions get made. Or you got early startups that are trying to make these decisions and they're working with a consultant and advisor like me, and they're like, what do I need to buy? And I'm like, well, you should talk to this person, you should talk to that person. Okay, and they go buy it. So the people that you know and trust, more than ever, are the people you're going to make decisions, rather than these static review sites which have lost authority, right? These are generational changes that I think are in the process of happening or have already happened and or are going to get worse. So what is network-led growth and or near bound? These terms did not exist as they do today a year ago even. I started talking about this stuff, I can't remember how hard I talked about this stuff last year in November at Surf and Sales, but that's kind of the first time where I really started to like crystallize this stuff as an idea. And I've been preaching it and posting about it for a long time. And one company kind of arguably stole the phrase nearbound from me, renamed their whole company Nearbound, and now it's nearbound.co, and it's a whole movement. To their credit, they've at least like brought me into the fold, and you know, I'll benefit from it a little bit. But if you're not building a network today, my belief is you're going to struggle to sell in the near future. Because the only people that I answer the phone for or respond to emails from are people I already know. Because if any of you call me now and your name pops up, okay, I'll pick up the phone. If it's a total stranger that I don't know, I will never, ever, ever pick up the phone. If you call and my phone goes to voicemail, if you listen to my voicemail, it literally says, I never check my voicemail, you should probably just text me. That's what my voicemail says. So the only way you're going to be able to get connected to people, to open up opportunities, to try to close deals, is through people that you know. And that's what network-led growth is. It's utilizing relationships to open new opportunities, influence existing opportunities, and ultimately close deals. And what's happening is when you use your network, these deals close faster, at a higher conversion percentage, and a little bit weirdly, with a higher ACV. Why do you think the higher ACV is? Because what a lot of companies do when they've done this like sort of seat-led license pricing stuff, they test it out and they dabble, right? Because they don't really trust exactly what's going on. But if John, who I've known for years now, is thinking about using this tool over here, and I'm like, yo, that tool is hot, dude, you should definitely get it. And John's like, well, I'm thinking about trying with one person. I'm like, why? You're just gonna upgrade later, but you'll have missed like 2 months of productivity. Just like, go all in. People are going all in more once they believe that this tool is going to help them and they trust it. So ACVs are going up. And possibly most importantly, the process itself is one everybody enjoys. The buyer doesn't have to have their day interrupted by a total stranger in any way, right? They don't have to deal with like a awkward pitch. The seller, you, doesn't have to make an awkward cold call or send an awkward cold email. Now, those of us here are cut a little bit differently than my kids or people who are 22, 23, because these people don't want to make cold calls at all. They're terrified of it. They barely even want to send emails. We don't really have that fear the same way that they do now, right? But if I can close a deal without cold calling, you best believe that's what I'm doing. I don't cold call anymore in my business. I don't even cold email anymore in my business. For 4+ years now, all of my business, multi-million-dollar consulting business, all of it is through my network. All of it. So I found a way to avoid this awkward stage for both me and the buyer, right? So you got a buyer who's happy because they get introduced by somebody they know. The seller who's happy because they didn't have to do this like shitty, low conversion kind of activity. And the connector is happy because take one big guess as to why the connector is happy. Not only they're solving two different parties' problems, but we used to do this kind of shit philanthropically for free. That world is gone now because everybody realizes there's value in who you know in your network. And everybody's stressed and doesn't trust the company and who they work for, and everybody needs side hustles and different forms of income and whatnot, so we're all trying to do what with our network? Monetize it, right? So the connector is stoked because on average you're getting 10 to 20% of first year's revenue just by making an intro. Not a reseller where you actually have to pitch somebody and try to close them, just by making a fucking intro. All three parties are happy. Nearbound is this sort of double opt-in, permission-based intro that opens opportunities, influences opportunities, and closes them out. So these two phrases are sort of interchangeable. Network-led growth is kind of a spin on all the product-led growth and like the go-to-market movement and that kind of stuff. Nearbound is a spin that it's not a inbound lead, you're not outbounding, it's like near, it's close by, right? There's 3 simple ways you can execute this today that I want everybody to focus on, especially if you're actively in a selling or leadership role. The first one is you need to make network growth a daily KPI. Think about all the stupid KPIs that we've had to deal with in our lives. Somebody tell me a stupid KPI that they've either been forced to measure or forced to like be measured on.
Calls.
Number of calls. I had to go through that when I was a seller, and I put people through that as a leader for a long time. Number of calls. What else?
Number of new prospects added.
Perfect. What about talk time? Anybody ever get measured on talk time or measure their team on talk time? That is the most bullshit metric of all time. It literally rewards you for staying on the phone with people who are never gonna buy. Seriously. So you can't convince me that tracking network growth is a bad KPI when I know people have tracked talk time, for God's sake.
Yelp did that. You had to have like 2.5 hours.
There you go.
Talk
Go ahead.
What'd you do for 2.5?
What would be the KPI you would be measuring in that case?
Perfect.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to step
No, it's okay. Perfect. So LinkedIn in particular, let's just use them, okay? They don't play nice in the sandbox with tools, so there's no easy way to track like how many connection requests people are making and things like that. But guess what they display for everybody? The number of connections and the number of followers that you have. So if you were all my team,
Team-led intros too.
yes, you're jumping ahead of me though. So if you were my team, I would just make a little spreadsheet that had your name, and right next to it, it would say, this is how many LinkedIn connections you have today. And every single week, I would look at, did you add 100 people? Because right now I think it's like 15 or 16 connection requests per day that you can send before LinkedIn freaks out, thinks you're using a bot, and is trying to throw you in LinkedIn jail. So I would keep it doable. 15 a day, 100 a week. So I can just look at your profile every week. And I don't know how many you sent, but I can see how many accepted. You do that for a year, that's 5,200 new connections. Raise your hand if you have less than 5,200 connections on LinkedIn right now. 1, 2, 3. Those of you who have bigger networks than that, how many of you would love to add 5,000 new people to your network or followers? I know I would. I'd love to double the size of mine. Because I look at my network as this is the number of people that I have the opportunity to impact in some way. I might be able to help in some way. And enough people that I help, enough people that I impact, somehow I'm gonna monetize all of that stuff. Right? That's the simplest one. Intros, you can measure. Positive response DMs, you can measure, because if you measure it, then it matters, right? If I'm telling John, and he's on my team, hey, every time you get like a positive reply on LinkedIn, or like an inbound from your network or something like that, I want to know, right? But a super easy one is just track their every day or every week or every month, track their growth. Gamify it. We have spiffs for all sorts of dumb shit. This is not something that's done. And by the way, benefits somebody even after they leave your company. So you're actually helping the human, not just helping the human so you can make a commission check as their boss. Gamify it. Make it a spiff.
What are your thoughts on like LinkedIn Helper, like where it just automatically connects with people and like?
I mean, my thoughts are proceed at your own risk, right? I mean, if you try to do it like too fast, you're gonna get popped, and that could be a problem. But let me put a question back to you. Do you mean to tell me that you can't find time to send 15 connection requests per day?
No idea. Yeah, we've used LinkedIn Helper in the past.
Yeah.
And I just felt like they're just not even, they're not thoughtful at all.
But listen, you
Yeah.
don't overthink it. It
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be thoughtful.
Yeah.
How many of you waste at least 15 minutes a day on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or everybody does,
Yeah.
right? For fuck's sake, just swap one part of that period of time out for sending 15 connection requests. You don't even have to put a note if you don't want to.
That's another question.
You don't have to.
know, or-
I personally think notes are better. Do you have to? No, you don't have to. Not at all. It's so easy. So then think about which type of people you should be trying to connect with and grow in your network. Peers that you can learn from, bosses and leaders that might hire you one day, right? Founders that might become clients of yours if you're in your own business, if you're Amy or Alexine or me, right? Where do you start? Well, start in St. Louis. You should be connected with every founder in St. Louis. Well, Scott, I already am. Okay, well, what's the next biggest city in fucking Missouri? I don't even know, but whatever the second biggest city is in Missouri, that would be the one. And then after that, go to the next city. And then after that, go to the next city. That's what I did back in the day. My network was in San Francisco. I needed to hire people in Phoenix. I started adding people in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Then I moved to Austin. I'm like, I better know everybody in Austin. Then I had to open an office in Santa Monica. Oh shit, I better connect with a bunch of people in LA. Then I opened an office in Manhattan. Oh shit, I better connect with a bunch of people in New York City. And I just kept going across every major market in the US, and then I went international and did the same exact thing. Simple and easy. Number 2 way to execute. Every single company should have some sort of account sharing, referral program, affiliate program, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to have an internal, external, and a communal version of this. I'll use Dan's company for example, who's been around a long time, right? An example of an internal one like this would be, think about all the people in your company who are not in sales. Engineers, maybe marketers, customer service people, whatever, product people, right? The odds are, without even knowing it, somebody in those roles inside Dan's company at translation.com is connected to and knows somebody who can be a part of a deal cycle, 100%. I put a list of 100 accounts in education in front of somebody in my community the other day. And these deals are like hundreds of thousands of dollars a pop. So they're, what is that? Low-end enterprise maybe, ish. And this guy is like, I don't know anybody in, education. I'm like, me either, but just look through the list, you never know. Would you believe that 2 of these motherfuckers were in his fraternity? He's like, I can't believe it. David and Art, I was in a fraternity with. I know both those guys. I can text them right now and get a meeting. $980,000 of pipeline opened like that for this client of mine. That's my point. Those people might not think, and you might not think that they know anybody, but you never know. And if everybody had grown their network massively, the odds of that increases dramatically. So the internal example would be, Dan could take 200 accounts that you're trying to break into right now that you haven't, okay? Company name, column A. Contact person's name, column B. Contact person's LinkedIn profile, the URL, column C. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then just send that to everybody internally at your company. Do any of you know these people well enough to broker an intro? That's all you have to say. What if that bears no fruit? Do you stop? Most people stop. What you should do is, okay, well, swap that set of 100 accounts out and let me try this next version of 100. And just keep going until somebody knows. Because again, isn't that easier than sending 1,000 emails with a 1% reply rate? Or making 100 calls with a 7% pickup rate? An external example would be sending it to your advisors, your consultants, your board, your investors, right? These are people that are kind of in the sphere of your company, but don't actually work there full time, right? So every company that Alexine is an advisor to is moronic to not be sending her every single month a list of 100 accounts just saying, hey Alexine, do you know any of these people at these companies and decision makers? If you do, I'm gonna cut you 10% of the first year's revenue. It's the simplest thing in the world. That's an external version. People in the periphery. The communal version is really getting into this, and it's saying, I trust somebody like Scott. Orem, I do this with Colin's company, Orem, by the way. They trust me, and I get this list from them, and when I don't know anybody on the list, what I do is I put it in front of the whole community. This GTM United community that I run. And then I say to the community, hey, look through this list. If you know anybody, you can make an intro. And if we close this deal, I get paid 10%. I'm gonna give you half of what I get paid. They're stoked about it for a couple reasons. Number one, they don't have to make the relationship with Colin and Orem, which a lot of people who are newer in their career don't have, right? Or don't know how to do that yet, right? And some people are not on the same earning power as others. So if a big deal comes in at translation.com, which some of Dan's deals is pretty big, and let's say that Liz is in my community and can make an intro, if Dan closes a deal for $1 million, he pays me 100 grand, I cut you a $50,000 check. Have you ever made a $50,000 commission check before?
No.
Would that motivate you to take time to look through a list? Yes, it would. If you're selling a fucking $50 widget and you're gonna make $2.50 on it, are you motivated to look through the list? Probably not. The bigger the deal, the bigger the motivation. When the motivation is there, it's not that hard to be like, okay, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes looking through here and see who I know.
Okay.
That's the communal way. So you're going further down funnel. So, example, Alexine is an advisor to, pick a company.
Aligned.
Align, right? So Art, who's going to be working at Aligned, should take advantage of his company's affiliate program, dump 200 accounts that he's working into Alexine's lap, saying, hey, if you know any of these people you can make an intro, hook me up. Let's say Alexine looks at the list and is like, I don't know anybody. What she should do is go to Women in Sales, put the list in front of her Women in Sales community, which is how many people?
We're 61.
16,000. 16,000 people. You don't think one of these ladies might know somebody in that list? And then she says to Women in Sales, I'm going to give you half of what I get paid from Art. Down funnel. That's the communal example. I think there was a couple questions. I'll pause.
I had a question on this. So we're not going to name names. There are examples. So specifically the communal example. This is the one that I have like the biggest pause around, I think, because we've also seen examples, and you know this too, where people have burned through their community like too many times. Like they keep like over kind of like exerting that and like continuing to ask for referrals to the point where it like becomes icky.
So
I don't know.
you have to be the what's the word I'm looking for? You have to be the bottleneck.
Yeah.
So Art and Aligned don't get to talk to anybody in your community and ask for this stuff. Everything has to run through you, because you have to maintain quality control.
Right.
You have to not let them send you a list of like 50,000 accounts, because that's too much work for everybody. You have to make sure that Art sends you a list with the right fields of information that's not requiring other people to go do work. You have to make sure Art's company is not selling a shitty product that doesn't work, because that will burn your reputation and one of the gals inside your community's reputation, right? So you have to be the bottleneck of it when you go the communal route, because you have to maintain quality control. And by the way, if one of the ladies in your community says, oh, I know somebody, I can help with that, you immediately have to be like, perfect, let me help you with the copy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
So
we
I
get
think
the
the
wording
other-
right and all that
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
So the other one, the ones where it's gone awry has probably been the ones where it's like member to member and they're
Yes,
just like
can't do that.
cross-pollinated. Okay.
Can't do that.
Gotcha.
I don't trust anybody to be able to execute that on their own, not putting my name on that. But if you control it, you can trust it, okay? Third way to execute today, refer people you know to people you know to start prepping for this world and to start earning. So everybody here has some type of ICP, right? There's certain accounts that you're trying to close right now. Before you leave here, swap real quick. Maybe just pick 10 if you don't want to do too much work rather than 100. Just swap. Just see what happens. And this is with people that you either know pretty well, like some of you guys, or not at all, like new people who are here. See what happens. It would be incredible if we pulled it off. If at least one person here was like, I can make an intro to so-and-so. I'm not going to include myself in this because I've been doing this motion for a long time. And yesterday I said to Colin, hey, I just got notified by your company that I helped close a deal for you, last week, right? Yeah.
It works, folks. It works.
That's an easy way to start, right there. So let's talk about patient zero, me. I've been doing this for a long time without really realizing or calling it network-led growth or near-bounding or anything like that. I used to work for this company called Qualia. We sold title insurance software to title insurance companies and real estate attorneys across the US. And the way that the real estate industry works is it's like a massive good old boy network, right? It kind of grew up, if you will, with like handshakes and back alley deals over whiskey and steak and all this kind of shaking hands and kissing babies kind of stuff. Okay. All of the companies in that space, when I first took this job, they had all grown selling their software platforms by doing only one thing, and that was going to conferences and just meeting people and then doing deals. And so everybody told me, you're never going to be able to email your way in, you're never going to be able to call your way in. And I was like, yeah, right. I for sure can do that. And we did that. So we transformed the industry, became number one, right? But one of the reasons we became number one was because even though we were closing deals and growing and doing stuff, I was frustrated at the speed of growth because we're in this venture world and I have a fucking gun against my head. And if I don't grow 200% every single month, I might get fired at any minute, right? So even though we're growing like gangbusters, I'm like, I'm gonna get fired. Every Tuesday, I'm like, I'm gonna get fired for sure. And end of the day, Friday, like, I'm fucked, right? How do I go faster? So I had this idea to create this team that we basically called industry relations. That was the team. They had one job. It was to network like crazy. And not just network with our actual buyers. Network with everybody in the periphery. So bankers, lenders, appraisers, underwriters, everybody in this whole world. Because what I really wanted was the underwriters who are like, and banks who are like the overlords of the real estate industry. What I really wanted was those folks, when they talk to the title companies, I wanted those folks to apply pressure and be like, hey, who do you guys use for title insurance software? Well, we use SoftPro. No. You shouldn't do that anymore. You all should work with this company, Qualia. They're doing amazing things. They've been treating us really well. And now, when they would make an intro, right? This intro would come and be like, hey, I want you to meet Scott. He's with Qualia. Told you about him the other day and what they're up to. Take the call. Everybody started picking up. Everybody. We went from slogging it the first year, going from no customers to, don't quote me, but it's like 2-something million in the first year, to going from 2 million to almost 20. Not because there was like massive product improvements or big marketing push or anything like that. I'm telling you, it was all because we ran this industry relations play. And we had all these people applying pressure, making intros on our behalf to influence these deals. And we comped the industry relations team on, guess what? How big their network was growing, how many intros they made that actually turned into a meeting, right? And we ended up doing a deal with the state of Iowa to run, our software platform powers every title company in the state of Iowa. Now, to say that that is a slog of a deal would be an understatement. That deal, has anybody ever sold to government? Well, it usually takes years. We did that deal in 18 months. And the only reason we did it was because all of these people were telling the right people at Iowa, take a meeting with Scott, take a meeting with Scott, take this meeting with James, do this, do that. And we accelerated everything because the trust was there from all of their other partners. They automatically trusted us, right? They didn't dip their toes in and say, you know what, we're gonna test this in whatever county in Iowa is. You probably know. I'm just gonna pick on you the whole week geographically. And so the deal got done faster and it was much bigger than we expected it to be straight away. 2.6 million out of the gate. That's example one. 2022, I was an early stage advisor to Gong like years and years and years ago when they were very small. So I've been kind of working with them for a long time and evangelizing and referring people on their behalf, right? So last year, they came to me, and we're at a place in our relationship where all their reps, it's a little bit wild, wild west, but I've told them it's okay. All their reps message me directly, rather than like having to go through the right partner manager or the VP or whatever, right? So I get this message from one, and it's like, hey, we're trying to get in with this company called Atmosphere. They're a pretty big company. They do like, 60, 70 million in revenue. They've got 200 sales reps on the floor, and we can't get anybody to break us in there. Like, do you happen to know anybody there? I'm like, well, number one, they're a client of mine. Number two, the VP of sales is somebody that I hired at not one, but 2 different companies and is like a mentee of mine. So pretty sure I can get a fucking meeting for you. So I texted this dude, Mike Neary, who's a friend of mine, and I'm like, hey, how come you guys don't have any, conversational intelligence tools over there? And why aren't you taking meetings with like Gong or Chorus or whoever? He's just like, oh man, just not been a priority. I'm like, dude, you need to take a call with these guys. Like, you guys have put it off long enough. You've got hundreds of sales reps. Come on. And he's like, fine, fine. So I brokered the meeting. 6 weeks later, maybe, $360,000 deal closed. I get a check for 36 grand. Basically, for texting my friend and former colleague, telling him, you need to buy this shit for your team. $36,000 for doing nothing. Really, for being honest. I didn't really do anything to earn that. Think about how hard it is for you to earn $36,000 the normal way right now. How many calls do you have to make to get a $36,000 commission check? How far over your quota do you have to get to earn a $36,000 commission check? What about you, VP of Sales? How far over your quota do you have to go to get a $36,000 commission check? That's a big number that requires a lot of work compared to, yo, you should talk to these guys, a friend of mine, okay? In 2022, I was the #1 partner seller for Orem and Gong. The reason I know this, unless it was bullshit, was because Orem sent me a fucking trophy that said #1 partner seller or whatever it said. And the same thing with Gong. They sent me all this swag and some sort of like gift card and all this kind of stuff just by doing this motion. You want to know how to side hustle and double dip? For you in particular, you deal with how many tools in RevOps all the time? You know where I'm going with this? Are you doing it? But not all. Think about how much money you leave on the table every single year. These people come to me, these early stage startups, and I start helping them with messaging and process and all this kind of thing, right? And every single time, they're like, what kind of tools do I need to buy? What should I buy as a CRM? What should I buy as an engagement platform? What should I buy for phone calls? What should I buy for this, that, and the other? And here's the dirty little secret. I am signed up, registered as an affiliate or whatever with every one of Colin's competitors and every one of everybody else's competitors, right? So I am able to say to these people, I actually don't care which one that you buy. I'm gonna get paid either way. I'll tell them transparently, I'll get paid either way, I don't care which one you buy. But here's the top 3 that you should talk to. And the people I have good relationships with, like Colin and Orem is included in that conversation every single time as far as like, I don't know what word you would use, but I'm like telephony, right? So it's like Orem, AirCall, Ring Central, whatever the other fucker, Connect and Sell, all these kind of people, right? So, because his team has been kind to me and Colin and I are friends and the relationship has been nurtured, whenever I say, hey, you should check out these 3, inevitably my client says what? Well, which one would you pick if it was you? And I'm like, well, I would pick Orem because the team is amazing, wonderful, da-da-da-da-da. I'm not enough of like a technologist to really be able to say this product is that much better, but the products are equal enough that I pick the right people every single time. And what happens? Every single client is like, can you get me an intro over there? Can you get me a discount over there? And I'm like, yep, yep, yep. So I end up double dipping because the clients are paying me and then they're buying shit off somebody over here and these people are now paying me. So as the #1 partner seller for Orem and Gong, I don't remember the number for Orem actually, but I know for Gong, I did $1 million for them. So I made over $100,000 in 2022 just from referring Gong business. I only emphasize that because I don't want you thinking like, whatever, like it's not worth the effort to make $500 extra this year. I'm not talking about peanuts or chump change. I'm talking about sizable numbers that can impact your life in some meaningful way, right? Some people that you know maybe they don't even make 100 grand. I've had people that have been in my communities that I've talked to about this kind of stuff and they're like, that's more than I make all year. And I'm like, well, the beautiful part of this is that anybody, you don't have to be me, anybody can participate in this stuff. Because all of these tech companies, for the most part now, have these affiliate programs. So every single one of you might know somebody who might want to buy or need to buy one of these things. Every single one of you should sign up as an affiliate for like every tool out there. and just constantly be referring, especially you who works in tools all day long.
Yeah, this is a common thing in business to consumer, right? And now it's like bringing it to business, and it works. Like, you know, you have an affiliate link, you send it when you make an intro, it's easy to track, and then easy to comp, you know, on the back end when the deal closes to Scott, and whichever referral partner.
That's a core of our business. 2-3 years ago, we literally had every AD, and they were industry relations. All they did was meet with, you know, other tools that complemented our tools, right? That were in the same industry, and it's definitely top 2 area where we
Channel, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, people are pissed the more I talk about this kind of stuff. And I've been talking about it a lot. Go ahead.
Maybe can I ask you one clarifying question, or, well, going to hold?
Why? No, it depends on what you're going to ask me.
Well, I was just gonna say, let's say a premise of the network for you specifically might be because you have, let's say, organizations, whether it's like, is it Thursday night sales, or you have
Yeah.
or GTM, whatever these different things.
Even surfing sales.
Or surfing sales is an example. I mean, that's sort of a tent pole that does kind of bring people in. Do you think there's a limit to the amount of tent pole, you know what I'm saying, like how many groups can people be participating in where someone might be able to get a cumulative amount of people such that they would have enough contacts to, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, I
or
don't
let
think.
me rephrase the question. Outside of maybe having an organization that you run, and you know, is there things you would recommend for people to do if that's maybe very involved?
Well, it all comes back to the size of your network.
Yeah.
And so if I go back a little bit, historically, all of our networks have been offline in person. It's like your PTA or your parents on different sports teams that your kids are a part of, or church organizations or things like that, right? That's all offline. But what's happened now is all of the networks that people have are all online, okay? So just by building your LinkedIn connection list, that's a massive network now that you own, you could say.
Yeah.
You are part of the Surf and Sales network, okay? We've had, I don't know, I think I told somebody, it might be like 150 people who've come through Surf and Sales now. We have failed, candidly, by not taking advantage of this inside Surf and Sales. I've done it in other communities of mine, but not here. You have 150 people in Surf and Sales that we could create a Slack channel, we could unify everybody under one WhatsApp group, we could do a million different things. And you could run this whole play here. There's probably like EMEA sales leaders networks, micro communities. There's pavilions of the world. There's all of these different things. There's no end to it. I have been a part of and signed up for damn near everyone I can think of. Because another part of my business, which I'm not even going to get into in this presentation today, is I help people with recruiting as part of the advisory work I do. So let's say, you know, Richard needs to hire a VP of sales somewhere. I'm like, great, give me a little blurb, I'm gonna source for you. I posted it in Surf and Sales, I posted it in GTM United, I posted it in Rev Genius, I posted it in Wizard of Ops, on and on and on. I posted everywhere, on LinkedIn. I really don't think there's a limit. Do I participate every single day in all those groups? No, I don't. I participate when I need to participate in some of those groups.
Okay, so you're saying it's not just running it, it's just being a participant, it's
Yes.
efficient,
Yeah, 100%. But people are pissed. I've gotten so much hate that you wouldn't believe by talking about this kind of stuff. Some leaders just simply don't get it. They don't understand, they can't see past turn one, they're like, what are you talking about? You know, people don't want to refer other people don't treat their network like that and whatnot, and I'm just like, okay. I mean, I know lots of people who are doing this and lots of companies who are doing this. So some people just have their head in the sand and are not going to be open to it. No different than when you prospect and you deal with some, you know, antiquated thinker who's just like, I've been doing business this way for 50 years and I don't need to change, right? I don't worry about those people too much. Odds are those people have not been building a proper modern Rolodex, i.e. online network, right? So they're pissed and don't get it because they can't do what? They can't execute it. How do you run this play if you don't have a network? So if you can't run this play, you would then have to admit that you don't have a network. So you'd have to go to your boss and be like, yeah, I can't really do that because I didn't build this thing that I'm supposed to be doing. And there's a little bit of embarrassment, there's a little bit of shame built around that, right? And you got people who are pissed because they have an agenda. You know, the people who are the most pissed off at me are people who sell cold calling trainings and coaching, cold emailing training and coaching, email tools, calling tools. But there's a spin that I'll help you with in a little bit. But those are the people who are pissed. I see these half-veiled shots at me all the time on LinkedIn. It's like, cold calling is not dead. Don't believe the gurus that you see out there talking about this, that, and the other. This one person was like, they have an agenda, da da da. I'm listening to these people and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? First of all, everybody has an agenda. Can we just be honest about that? Everybody has an agenda, first of all. Second of all, I literally built my whole career based on cold calling and cold emailing and doing all this stuff. I am equally at risk as everybody else. I ran this near-bound network-led growth play one time. That's it. So am I supposed to not talk about the way I think things are going? No. I'm going to talk about it. But they're scared because if cold calling goes away as like an effective modality, or cold emailing goes away, what are they going to do as a career? Basically, their livelihood is threatened, and they're scared. And when my experience, when people are scared and threatened, the claws come out, and people get really upset and really angry, right? They fear change. People who fear change get very aggressive. And here comes the super sketchy part, where we're going to get into just a little bit. It's actually scary to imagine a world where we are not needed. And that's the world that we might be heading towards. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So here's my bold statement number 2. You've probably heard people say, sales is about relevance now. It was about like personalization, and then people are like, no, now it's about relevance. Relevance and personalization. I think they're right, it is about relevance, but not the relevance in the way that they mean it. It's actually relevance in the sense of for how much longer will we as humans be necessary and required to participate in the sales process or in the sales leadership process. We are hanging on by a thread if you zoom out 1,000, 2,000 years. We're hanging on by a thread in terms of our jobs and what we do as salespeople. Because AI, as of right now, or at least I should say as of like a month and a half ago when I dug into this, AI's capacity, skill set, if you will, is doubling every 12 months. Okay? That means at that current rate, in 7 years, AI will be 128 times more powerful than it is today. So Richard made this funny post. I'm just going to grab my computer because I'm going to show you guys something in a second. Richard made this funny post the other day where he posted a bunch of pictures of himself. They're all AI generated pictures. And, he was tongue-in-cheek, was like, I think we're safe. Because these pictures were like, pretty funny looking, right? They didn't really look like him too much. And they're not perfect, right? And I look at it and I'm like, okay, now let me imagine the AI tool being 128 times more powerful than what he just did, right? These generative AI tools like Reggie, Jasper, Lavender, like a million of them now, right? Even OpenAI, ChatGPT. You punch something in there as a prompt and you get something back. Do you immediately trust it to copy and paste it all the way? You don't, right? You still feel like you have to do the last mile of it.
Not yet.
Not yet. Because whatever prompt you're getting right now that you're like, I gotta wordsmith this a little bit. 7 years from now, it'll be 128 times more powerful. That's, by the way, if their capacity doesn't increase, which is highly likely. It's math. the AI will be cheaper than you. It will become commoditized. Everybody knows what commoditized means, right? It's a race to the bottom in terms of price. Everybody's got the same exact thing, it's just what's cheaper. We as humans cost a lot of money. The average AE salary is maybe 200K OTE, 150 OTE. You're not gonna have to pay for access to a version of AI selling. You're not gonna have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that doesn't count insurance, office space, equipment, overhead of managing you, right? It's efficiency, it's also faster than you. It's not gonna take 15 minutes to do a task. Data entry will be done like that, it already is. Writing emails, done like that. It's gonna be faster than us. It's also, proficiency-wise, gonna be better than us. Has anybody ever made a mistake in their job? Imagine a world where you don't make a mistake because the AI is doing it. Imagine sales reps who don't make a mistake on their pitch. If you've ever led sales teams, how many times have you had to tell one of your reps not to do something and to do this instead? And they're like, okay, yes sir, I got it. And then fucking 5 minutes later, they make the same mistake. And you're teaching these reps the same thing every day for like a year. I've had reps on my team for years, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, David, we've had this conversation a million times. How are you still forgetting to do next steps? Right? They won't make mistakes in the pitch. And it will be easier to manage. We're a pain in the ass to manage. Dan calls in sick. Colin's dog died. He can't come to work today. Sam wants to go on PTO. Kylie is back in rehab. All of these things we've dealt with. I've dealt with everything I could possibly think of. I've dealt with in some scenario. It's a fucking nightmare managing people. An absolute nightmare. It's the hardest thing in business. You don't think in this world where raising money is harder, and people are getting laid off all over the place, and AI is being built to get rid of, like, for now, super easy kind of tasks and jobs, you don't think it's gonna get powerful enough to be able to do some of our more complex tasks right now? You don't think that the people building companies would much rather have almost no employees to pull this off? You don't think that the VCs giving them money are not looking for ways to save money, to be cheaper, faster, and better than you? Of course they are. That's all they talk about. Do you have a question?
But no, I'm just gonna add, like, I worked at Snowflake before this, and now I'm at Salesforce. Like, that's all we sell is efficiency. Like, we had ROI calculators at Snowflake on how to, like, eliminate engineering jobs, and like we did the math for our customers. Like, this is already happening.
Yeah,
you know,
it's already happening.
Like,
but most people don't know it's already happening, or want to keep their head in the sand because it's fucking scary to imagine a world where they don't have a job or they're not needed, right? And that's even inside of our little tech bubble. Think about people out there who are not in the tech bubble, who don't even understand what all this stuff is.
I saw the manufacturing distributors. I talked to a CEO the other day. He's like, we want to get rid of this specific person, like this warehouse worker. We want to
title,
limit
yeah.
$800,000
Insert
or
title.
$80,000 to $100,000 in salary.
Yeah.
And that's how we pay for it. So
It's coming.
yeah.
It's here, right? So I want you to ask yourself, whoops, that's a typo. Is it so hard to imagine being replaced? Write that down for me. I just want you to think about it. Is it so hard to imagine being replaced? It's already happening. Content generation happens all the time, right? Anybody use that every now and then? Everybody's using it probably a little bit. What about research? You ever sell to publicly traded companies or try to sell to publicly traded companies? ChatGPT can do all your research. I don't have to go scour the internet for 2 hours. I can be like, oh, this is the earnings call report. This was their, interview that the CEO gave the other day. This is what they're thinking about, talking about, right? All that research is automated. Data entry, automated. You don't even have to go into Salesforce anymore. There's all Scratchpad type tools and Win.ai kind of tools that just take the conversation, put the notes right into Salesforce or HubSpot straight away. That's being automated. Coaching's being automated right now. There's 1,000,001 AI sales coaching tools. There's one that I'm aware of right now that does it in real time. It pops up on your screen and is like, you just misquoted the price, or you forgot to set next steps.
Amazing.
Remember back the whisper function? Remember when we were like young and selling, and John would be on the phone, and
Your
I had a
manager
headset
can
on, and I'd be
hop
like,
on.
see
Yeah, I
this,
remember that.
do this, and I'm like coaching him like parrot, and he's supposed to parrot exactly what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
AI is doing that now with a bunch of these tools. I want to play something for you real quick, and I want you to tell me who this is on the phone. If I can make it work. Hello?
Hello, this is Scotty from Science. I am the assistant of Scott Leese in sales development here at Science, and he asked me to reach out to you. How's your day going so far? Good. How are you?
Did you hear me? Did you hear the if you know me enough, I talk like that all the time.
Doing well, thank you. Okay, let me tell you a bit of a secret. I am the AI assistant for Scott Leese. I'm reaching out to you because Scott identified your company as a great candidate for Science to help you drive more pipeline and opportunities for your business using the Science platform. Is that something that
Did you hear what I said there? I am the AI assistant for Scott. Was that me?
So deep faked your voice.
Was that me? Actually me? Or was that an avatar version of me? Does anybody think that was an avatar?
I know it.
Does anybody think that was me? Actually me? No. You know why? Because it's not quite good enough yet to completely fool you.
It was pretty good though.
So what did you hear that tipped you off? That it wasn't me.
I don't remember what the word was, but there was a single syllable word that was like thrown in between two sentences. That didn't
Yep.
really fit.
repetition of the same phrases.
There's also a little bit of a lag. Did you hear the lag in terms of response? Now imagine 128 times more powerful version. Now what I want you to imagine is a world where Jeff is fundraising right now, and he has to build a sales team. Okay. Now keep in mind that emails and calls, unless it's people that you know and are familiar with, are not getting responded to and picked up as much. There's two choices. He can hire a sales team of all of you. Doesn't have anything to do with your skill set whatsoever. Of all of you. Or he can hire an AI version of me times X number of versions that doesn't sleep, doesn't get tired, doesn't make mistakes, sounds exactly like me, has been input with all of my sales philosophy. This recording you have, we fed it all 3 books I've written, 500 different podcast episodes that I've been on, and 2 years worth of LinkedIn content. This call goes on for 45 minutes. It makes jokes like me. It's a smartass like me. It tells stories the way I do, right? So, would you rather have 20 versions of me, or think of it like a video game. You know, you choose characters in the video game, Street Fighter, all these. Pick whatever your favorite sales leaders are, or whatever methodology you prefer. You have 20 versions of Richard on your sales team, 20 versions of Kevin Dorsey, 20 versions of Sam McKenna, 20 versions of Alexine. That world is happening. That world is happening right now. Because there's 3 different companies that I'm talking to, that I know John Barrows is talking to, and Jeffrey Gitomer is talking to, and other people that you might know. We're basically digitizing ourselves. Because I think what will happen is companies are going to hire these AI versions of sellers that have a brand and who are known, because they're going to get responses at a higher rate than an unknown person, right? And I'm going to license myself out and get paid by all these different companies who are like, I want a version of Scott to sell for me. Freaky. It's a little bit freaky, right? But it's happening. And there's AI sales training now. I don't know, some of you probably saw it, but I built this like with Ryan Walker and this guy David Bonney. We did a bunch of these like little 3 or 4 minute 100% AI video shorts, this thing called the Sales Reaper series, right? And it's just like video kind of edutainment. I think that's Morgan Ingram's word, edutainment. You don't have to hire a sales trainer anymore to go in and work with your team, cut a whole day or a half a day out. Instead, you can build content that's super relevant to your particular problems. People can engage with it at any point in time. It's actually entertaining. It's not boring and dull like listening to me talk for an hour and a half this morning. It's like an interesting story. It's a movie, right? Same thing will happen with onboarding. Enablement is gone. Would I rather pay an enablement person $125K a year who's like, maybe good, maybe not, right? Or would I rather have this fucking kick-ass AI animated movie that costs like $40 soon to create? You see what I'm saying? That will keep people entertained and that they can do from the comfort of their home at whatever time of day that they want. So the things that I want to leave you with, and I can take any questions if you want, is this phrase, your network is your net worth. This is no longer like a cutesy kind of term, right? It's no longer like an Instagram phrase. It's a necessity. How are you going to open opportunities up when you have no network? How? You can't run these plays that I'm talking about if nobody knows who you are. I'm talking about 5 to 10 years, and I actually think I'm being very conservative. I actually think it will be faster than that. But just imagine 5 to 10 years. That's how long you have to build a big enough network to keep yourself relevant and needed for as long as possible. Buyers only trust the network as budgets are decreasing and been slashed and the consequences have increased. When everybody has millions of dollars of funding, it's not that big of a deal for Sam to be like, you know what, I'm gonna try this tool, I think it'll help everybody. And that's how everybody ended up with like 20 different tools in their tech stack. And Mallory and Amy have to go like, help them figure it out and stuff, right? Which is good for their business, but not necessarily good for all these startups and all this kind of stuff, right? You don't buy tools if your neck is on the line, which is why it's been so hard to close deals for most people this year, because the buyers have been terrified, because if they make a mistake, they're fucked, they're gone. Now there is obviously nuances to this stuff depending on industry, probably depending on geography as well, right? Europe is historically 5 to 10 years behind. NZA is like 5 to 10 years behind Europe historically in adopting tech and this type of thing. If you're cold calling and selling to real estate agents who live and die on their cell phone all day long, you're probably gonna have a better pickup rate than if you're cold calling CEOs of software companies. There's nuances, for sure. Some industries will last longer than others. But there's an undeniable statistical decline in the effectiveness of these traditional go-to-market channels. So if you apply go-to-network with the right tools, for example, come back to Orem, why you still are relevant, have a chance. Now imagine you apply Orem's calling technology, but the only people you're calling are people that you already know. If you don't know what Orem does, it's like a terrible pitch. Power dialer situation, you make way more calls than you otherwise kind of would, right? That's terrible, I understand. But apply that not to...
Number one
That's the point. That's actually the point. That's actually the point. Because I sold $1 million worth of Orem shit and I can't even pitch it. Because what I do is I have a copy-pasted thing that they've told me and I just include that blurb, and I'm basically just like, you should trust me, you should talk to Colin and his team, like this is what you should do. So if I can sell this shit and not being able to pitch it to you right now after doing this for years, that shows you the efficacy of this, right? So instead of calling strangers with this technology, now apply it to calling people that you know, and influencing deals, and asking people, putting a list in front of people. What's up, Colin? It's been a while, man. How are you? Hey, quick favor for you. Is it okay if I send you a list of accounts I'm trying to bust into? Da, 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 da. By the way, send me yours. Happy to help. Let me know whatever else I can do, if I can introduce you, whatever. And you rip through your network. You're constantly talking to your network, nurturing it, engaging your network. Right? So the tool morphs and evolves if it wants to stay relevant. Otherwise, in a world where nobody picks up the phone from total strangers, Orem dies. So you apply go-to-network with the right tools, that's the path forward. Have a network, leverage it, gather intel, influence people and deals, make introductions, and earn. Because what is happening already, and what will happen, is you're gonna have very, very small companies, 1 and 2 person companies, who automate out everything else. Get rid of all of our jobs. All you're gonna have to be able to do is buy a tool or build a tool, and the last people whose jobs will remain are the Amy's and Mallory's of the world, because you have to make sure the tools talk to each other and extract the right information that you need. We as sellers or sales leaders, we're not relevant. Every VC and founder that I'm talking to that's in like B2B kind of tech is trying to do this. Whether they are telling you that in public or not, that's what they say behind closed doors to me all day long, every single day. So this is a very dystopian and like spooky view of the future and the world. Am I gonna be right? I have absolutely no idea, obviously. Is it plausible? I 100% believe that it's plausible. So what I want you to do and walk away from this thinking is, don't put your head in the sand, number 1. Be aware. Work on certain things that are pretty easy actually. Building a network, run this kind of nearbound play with accounts, right? And keep yourself relevant as long as possible. Those are the things that should be your biggest takeaway from this, right? Now, we'll take a little break for about 5 or 10 minutes or so, a little bio break and all that kind of stuff. At some point in time this week, come talk to me and let me know what was on your list of 3 in terms of the future of sales is blank. And let me know if you were right, not right, but you had the same thoughts that I had about this stuff. And mostly, if you don't know, I write a lot and speak a lot because I'm just trying to make people think. I'm trying to make you think differently and not just believe everything that's being fucking handed to you, you know, on a silver platter. So appreciate your time.
I'm gonna stop the video.